Include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
All the animals are standing in the shade today, and so are David and I. And this is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live. Welcome everybody to another sunset safari. It's a lovely scorching day, and like I said just a moment ago, myself and David are hiding away in the shade. Now my name is Taylor, and like I just said, David is on camera with me, and we are surrounded by Impala. And I think that it's a great way to start the afternoon with a beautiful herd of Impala, and they're so relaxed. But as you can see, they're not doing too much at the moment. They really are just moving from shade to shade. And I suspect that they're probably edging their way closer, perhaps to a watering hole, where they'll maybe have a drink a little bit later. And on this very fine, hot afternoon, I'm hoping that we're going to find some warthogs and perhaps some elephants, my favorite animal, splashing around. Now, if you've just tuned in, welcome again, and you are currently watching a live safari. So if you'd like to interact with any of us out and about today, you're more than welcome to, and you can either hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, questions at WildEarthTV. Should we go a bit closer? I think let's go for, oh, hang on. There's a male that seems to be chasing, I think it was another male around. Now I wonder if they're going to do a loop back. There we go. Chasing a young boy out. And he's probably from last year, an offspring from last year, and hasn't quite realized that he's not really welcome in the herds anymore. Off he goes, giving a little shout as he tells those young... Perfect, let's keep going forward. One of the really amazing things about this time of the year is that most of these Impala lambs have sort of really got used to their legs. And what I'm hoping to also see, because it is such a nice day, I think everybody's is full of energy after the cold, miserable, rainy days we have had. And I'm hoping that they're going to show us how big and strong they've got and really test their legs for us by bounding about. That's always really, really pleasant to watch. Just stop up here. Hello guys. They're everywhere. They're on the right side of us. They're on the left side of us. There you go. There's that male again. Okay, he's just chasing a female around now. And he's not running very fast at the moment, but you won't believe how these Impala can pick up the pace when they really want to. Watch this. Watch him as he opens up. Oh, you're a bit lazy. Nah, he's just playing games. He's not really too bothered at the moment. And you can see everybody else just standing by, watching, hoping that he's not going to turn on them and chase them around. It's almost difficult to spot the youngsters amongst the adults now. They've grown up so much. But isn't this just so lovely? All grooming, some of them chewing on the cud. Those two are the little ones are actually grooming each other. Isn't that a good way to strengthen the bond between the different members of a herd? And one of them is a little young boy. So sadly, this time next year, he'll probably be facing the same doom as that other young male Impala has just received from a big adult, being chased away. And the birds are even very quiet this afternoon.
And I'll get... Where am I in the wrong place, Brian? I'm going nuts. There we go. I thought we were on a completely different patch of flowers. There we go. There's the diadem. The male diadem. Now, one of the more common butterflies, oh, he's so pretty, that we're seeing amongst this hive of activity is, of course, the little grass yellows. And, oh, he's having a hungry butterfly. Very, very beautiful. Now the female diadem, off it goes, mimics the monarch. Now let's try to find one of these little yellows. So, someone was asking, Bushmom wanted to know the difference between a broad bordered grass yellow and a broad banded. Well, they're the same. They're exactly the same. There's no difference whatsoever between them. I think with a lot of butterflies, there's actually multiple names for them, and it can be very confusing. Oh, there's a painted lady out in the open now. Now, I got so excited about being surrounded by butterflies that I forgot to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Brent, and I've got my cameraman Brian, and his thumb is going old school all the way back to bedrock today. So, the caveman thumb, and we're going to go look for some leopards now. So while we do that, let's go see James in his sauna.
While Brent is, well, it's sauna-ish in here, but there's a nice breeze coming from the southeast. But while Brent is heading to the Valley of the Leopard, we are in the Valley of the Brown Recluse. Andre can't see it, everybody. My name is James Hendry. I know it's been a while since you saw me, so that's who I am. And you can talk to us, #SafariLive, questions at WildEarthTV. Terms and conditions of buyer and batteries are not included for the duration of the show. We are as live as everyone else is out here, in fact, probably even more so. Andre is on camera. It's very nice to have his vast legs in the tent with me once more. Marvellous. Now, let's have a look underneath the microscope. For this is the brown recluse, everybody. And you can see the very obvious, brown widow, the very obvious hourglass-shaped red spot on the belly. I'm just going to try and turn the light up slightly. Sorry. Hold on. Oh, don't disappear. There we go. That's a bit better, sort of. And, I mean, it looks like an innocuous creature to me, and I have shown you this before, but we haven't had quite as good a view. Front there, you can see them just behind, well, they're not actually, those are the pedipalps, but behind the pedipalps are where the fangs will be. And this thing does have a rather nasty bite for a human being. Won't kill you, or highly unlikely to kill you, but it does have a nasty bite. So that's what that is. And then what we were hoping was by tomorrow, if you just come back to me quickly, Kirst, we were hoping that the egg sac, which I'll show you now, would have hatched by tomorrow. Well, no, by Monday, because that's, of course, when our TV show is. And it has not. And what I'm going to do before we show this to you is I'm just going to take the exposure down slightly, because otherwise it's just going to look like a blinding bulb in your face. Nobody wants that, Andre, do they? No. There we go. That's the egg sac there. And that egg sac is obviously now stuffed full of little brown widow spiders. And it is very obvious that from this egg sac, what we're looking at here is a species called Lactrodectrus geometricus. And this is the only one that makes a beautiful egg sac like this. So that's the story in here in the Valley of the Brown Recluse. Now, I was rather hoping there'd be some spiderlings by Monday. There might be, I don't know, and I've yet to find out exactly how long they take to hatch. But this thing has been sat in here all week long. And in fact, there's another, ooh, there's the other one. Chandra, look, they're both there. You see that one there? Shall I microscope it? Please excuse this disgusting box. I'm sorry about that, everybody. But no, that is the daddy long logs. It's over here.
Yes.
Shall I put my finger on it?
If you can put it on the floor, it will help.
If I can put it on the floor, or over here, on the floor. And Erin, you're wondering how many spiders there are in the egg sac. Erin, I would suspect that there are at least 20 little spiderlings. There we can see it. and it's exactly the same species. I thought at one stage that there were two species, but this one has also got egg sacs just behind there. And we see them over there, Gendry. No, we can't. Let me move this for you. Sorry, everyone, I didn't expect to find all of these things like that. How's that? Is that better? There we go. That one's got 3 egg sacs. So, Aaron, we could have up to 100 rather deadly spiderlings in here fairly soon. So it's best we put the lid back on this lot so that they don't crawl out and give us a lot of trouble. I'll probably release them after Monday on television. Terrifying stuff. Okay, good. Right, well, they can go back outside. I shall firmly clamp this down. In the meantime, Pyjamas Patterson is not asleep. She is, in fact, out on foot, not in her pyjamas, with an animal that I suppose could be thought of as wearing pyjamas.
Definitely not in my pajamas, but unfortunately possibly not with an animal anymore. And the animal that we've encountered is a familiar one, and I'll explain a little bit more in a moment. But a very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Jamie. This afternoon, VM is on camera with me, and I'm very excited about this bushwalk this afternoon, because I feel as though after all the rain that we've had with all the puddle potential, and then after a few hours of bright and beautiful sunlight, then perhaps all kinds of interesting creepy crawlies, slugs and snails, and hopefully not puppy dog tails, and frogs, and all sorts of things in between might have popped out. And just a quick introduction, with his hat set at a very jaunty angle, is Herbie. Nice hat, Herbie. That is Herbie, or Herbert, and he will be accompanying us, making sure that we don't run into any trouble while I'm blabbering away towards the camera. I might not be fully focused on the bush in front of me. Herbert is a tracker guide and spotter extraordinaire. Now, the animal that I said is quite familiar to us is a little giraffe. Well, it's actually not so little, I have to say, when you're on foot with it. There it goes. It's okay, little one. Shame, we came stumbling down the road, just went round the corner, and there they were. And there they go. It is now gone. Giraffe has vanished off. But that is the same young giraffe, I'm pretty sure it's the same young giraffe, that we saw for the TV shows. When was it? Was it our 6th installment? Don't get nuts. Of course, we are out in Africa, and sometimes the internet can be a bit of a problem. Now, I had something for you. I had termites, I had alates trying to escape or leave their burrow, but now they're gone. I can't believe they're finished. That was quick, eh, David? Wow. So basically, we had this tiny little hole coming out of the ground, which was really amazing. We might see it some more, but it seems as though this lot has finished releasing the alates. But it's unusual that they'll release them during the day. Normally they do it a couple of days after you've had an excessive amount of rain, and it's usually pretty amazing then. And just at sunset you'll see them all sort of evacuating and then taking off in search of a mate and then starting their own mound. And like I said, very risky to do so during the day because of all the birds that will be around and that will spot them. We had some Wahlberg's eagles, we had European rollers, lilac-breasted rollers, a couple of magpie shrikes, and some Amur falcons all flying around catching them. But I can't believe, as we moved off in the shade just for a couple of minutes, because you know how hot it is out here, they completely disappeared. That was amazing. Wow, okay, we will see. I think tonight we'll probably get nice and lucky. We're going to go and head towards Buffelshoek Dam and have a scratch around there and see what's happening. And there wasn't anything at Sydney's dam, unfortunately, just lots and lots of water. But it seems as though Jamie Patterson is on a roll this afternoon. So let's go across to her on Bushwalk and see if she's got any more critters to show you. I do indeed have a lovely critter to show you, and a very, very well hidden critter. And I'll explain the contraption in my hand in a moment. But before we get on to that, we do apologize for the break in transmission. We're glad to see you back with us once again. And just have a look at this wonderful critter. Let me try and move this out of your way. This wonderful critter that Herbie has found for us in the form of a tree frog. Can you see it there, Viam? He is so he or she is so beautifully camouflaged, also known as a foam nest frog. And it is basically mottled in a way that imitates the bark of the guarri bush and the lichen on the guarri bush. And so confident is it in its camouflage, or at least so comfortable in the way in which it is hidden, that even when my hand comes around it, I'm not going to touch it. We've spoken before about the impact of our chemicals on our skin and how sensitive frogs are to them. So I'm not going to touch this particular frog because my hand is covered in sunblock and insect repellent. But you can just see how he or she just keeps totally still and completely hidden. And that's the wonderful thing about tree frogs or foam nest frogs, is their ability to change color. And generally you'll find they seem to really, of all of our frog species, they're the ones that find themselves in the strangest places in human habitation. Usually on something like a nail sticking out of a wall, or quite often in the shower. And when they're in the shower with you, you find that they tend to change color. They'll go from black when it's quite cool, and as the water starts to heat up and there's lots of steam, they immediately go white in color, just as a sort of a temperature changing or a thermoregulation technique. But then, of course, it also serves the function of camouflage. Now, you can't see from your perspective, and unfortunately, given that I'm standing in a guarri bush, Viam can't make his way in here to see this frog. But suffice to say that her entire body is mottled in that way and completely hidden. I wonder if there's something wrong with its leg, or is that just mud? Sorry, I've just noticed that now. It actually looks as though it might have lost a leg. I don't know if you can see that, Viam. I thought it was just tucked under her body. Sorry. I thought it was just tucked under her body, but now it actually looks like there might not be a leg there. And we saw those frogs, bullfrogs admittedly, but we saw those frogs grabbing each other the other morning on our live safari drive. And they kept grabbing each other, the males kept grabbing each other by the arm. I wonder if this isn't perhaps a male frog, because that's not an intact arm. It's actually lost its arm completely. And that, I suppose, could have happened in the duration of fighting for a female. It could have been a lucky escape from a predator, but could have been fighting for a female in order to produce what gives them the name the foam nest frog, which is foam nests just like this one. That's a nice, fresh, beautiful foam nest. And they face a certain urgency, foam nest frogs, because these pans are temporary. So they have to mate, lay their eggs, create those nests. Those nests have to hatch, and those tadpoles have to develop into adults before this water source dries up. So you can imagine there is a sense of serious expectation, serious urgency to the whole life cycle, that part of the life cycle of the frog, because if they don't get that done, then they're not going to produce the next generation. And they can't choose a nice big water hole like Chitwa Dam. They can, but they've got a much greater chance of and by catfish and by anything else that happens to be swimming around. Now allow me to explain the stick I'm clutching and the fact that I'm clutching Viam's mobile phone as well. This is Viam's endoscope. We used it to poke into a termite mound, when was that, Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, and we now plan on poking it into other crevices in the bush, perhaps a hole in a marula tree. I've already tried the trees around here, and so far nothing exciting has struck us, but we've got it taped to a stick so that we can, and that it gives it a little bit more of a directional ability. So that's part of our plan for the afternoon. I also might pop by Djuma Dam and just see what's happening there. But there we go. Those are all the things that are happening out here. Now while we stroll along, I completely forgot about the fact that today is International Pangolin Day. Now, of course, I think it's absolutely compulsory that, as a result, we should go back to James in the tent and go and see if he can draw one for you.
Hello, yes indeed. I am going to attempt to draw a pangolin. Now, for those of you who don't know, Jamie's favourite description of a pangolin, I'm not sure if it's hers, but the one she uses a lot, is that of a crawling artichoke, which is exactly what they look like. I, as you all know, am an excellent drawer. And so I'm going to draw you a pangolin. Are you ready? International Pangolin Day, they are an endangered species. And while I draw it, I will tell you that there are a number of very good people around the world doing quite a lot to make sure that they survive. Many of them actually live where Chitwa lives in Zambia. And they look something like this. They are used, the scales are used in traditional medicine. I haven't planned drawing this at all, so you'll just have to bear with me, well, as you always do, very kindly. And the scales they obviously are just made of keratin. They're not actually used for anything useful, or they can't be used for anything useful because they are purely keratin. But they're very easy to kill, and apparently they taste quite good. And they're easy to kill for a human being because, we obviously have the tools to do it. If they are, however, caught by a predator, say a leopard or a lion, they roll themselves up into a ball, and they're almost impossible to break open. This is turning out exceptionally well. I'm quite disappointed myself. I was hoping to give myself a bit of a laugh. The back leg is definitely not going to be what it's supposed to be. Something like that, I think. It's got to lie. And look at that pangolin. I think that's quite good. What do you think, Chandra?
Yes.
Yes. Let me just label it. Pangolin. Shall I sign it?
Yes.
I'm not quite finished, of course. What's the date? 18th. There we go. Gorgeous stuff. The pangolin has got a very long tongue. It's a pity to have ruined it like that, but anyway, there we go. And their favourite food, of course, are ants, which look like this. These ants are currently running away from this pangolin, but one of them has not managed to escape. That's it screaming, you see. It's been killed, and it's going to end up in the gullet of this pangolin.
So we get a clean shot for everyone.
Yes, there we go. It's a clean shot for everyone's screen grabs. A beautiful pangolin. Now, I'm going to tell you a bit more about pangolins when you come back to us, but Brent Leo Smith has got a nice feathered friend he'd like to show you. I shall add to that and tell you more about it shortly.
Look at this. Now, I keep commenting how I never see this bird here in the Sabi Sands in the north, and obviously the rain has brought them in. He's even doing the beautiful display. Look how his crest's up, and he might do a little wing flit as well. It is a rufous-naped lark. There's the wing flit. That is so cool. Now, They often perch quite prominently like this when they are display calling, and you can see he's got his crest up and he's looking for love. And there's that pff, pff. Now we've been following them for quite a while. They've actually been battling. There's a couple of males looking for the best calling spots. I've got some bad news about Mr. Quarantine. He's unfortunately departed the area and gone back to the north. I think we're going to do some birding down here. There's so many cool birds around at the moment. I can hear the monotonous larks calling as well. But it's a new one for my Cheetah Plains bird list, so I'm sure it might be a new one for a lot of you. So, oh, there we go. So, let me know if a rufous-naped lark is a new bird species for you. I'm sure we might actually get a few new birds after this rain. Now, Brian and I have been discussing the monotonous larks because they are making a racket. But they're a bit far. Let's get a bit closer. Let's see if we can find one who's calling. Brian says it sounds more like a fall. There's the lesser grey shrike. Is he going to land? He is too. They've now become quite regular here in Cheetah Plains, seeing the lesser grey shrike, and obviously that's one of his favourite spots, that acacia tree there. I can't see any stashed dinner hooked onto the thorns at the moment, but they do that. If there's an influx of food, they will keep a little larder on a thorn tree. Well, those flies around him. Did you see those flies? That was crazy. We better go before the flies find us, Brian. Just go back to where he was sitting. Look at those flies, top left. Oh, quickly, Brian, we must move before they find us. Okay. There's a monotonous lark calling. The others sound like they're unfortunately south of our boundary, but there's one calling over here somewhere. Well done, James. James says rufous-naped lark number 222 on his list. Well, if you don't have monotonous lark, I'm pretty sure we're going to get it at some point this afternoon. I'm sure I heard one calling here. Brian says it sounds like the type of call that would make you go mad. Where is he? I can hear him. Let's just see if we can get a quick look. Oh, there he flies. He's gonna go, stop. He might land on that stump. No, he's coming back towards us. Oh no, don't go land in the sun where we can't see. Okay, well, we're going to keep looking for monotonous larks and other birds while we do that. Taylor's got something that might eat a bird or two if given the opportunity.
I agree, Brent, especially these youngsters now. But we've come across the Nkuhuma Pride, who have moved from where they were this morning. And we left them in some very, very thick vegetation, and they have just moved into some more very, very thick vegetation. And that's just because they're trying to escape the heat that is upon us today. And I can still only see 3 lionesses, but all 6 cubs are here. Now the problem is that we're wedged between a couple of tambueti trees. We've stumbled across a little tambueti thicket, and they're big trees. So it makes for maneuvering quite difficult. So we'll have to see what we can do. Hopefully it does cool down in an hour or so, and then we will hopefully get them moving out of this area. But I must warn you, because it is such a tight space, there are quite a few vehicles out on safari this afternoon, and I know that they would love to come and see the lions. So perhaps what we'll do is we'll just sit here for a couple of minutes, and I think we can only really fit 1 vehicle in here, which is a pity. But the other guides, I'm sure, won't be too long, and we can go off and look at the hippos at Buffelshoek Dam, and then once Spots opens up again, we'll come back here. But for the meantime, we can enjoy it. And I'm not going to be fooled by these ladies, because they've done this to us a number of times, where they sort of wake up from a mid-afternoon siesta and they start to groom themselves, which is normally an indication that they're going to wake up and get moving. I suspect that this is not the case, though. Look at her. She doesn't look like she's ready to go anywhere just yet. Your eyes are barely open. So I think that she's just having a little groom, a little stretch, and she'll probably roll back over and go to sleep again until the temperature decreases slightly. Look at that. Trying to pull off any parasites that are lying underneath her hair. And especially at the moment, I think they're going to have to do quite a large amount of grooming. More so than in the winter months, because of after all the rain, you get a burst of ticks. And I've seen a lot of those pepper ticks, those tiny ticks that are almost the size of a pinhead, all on the grass at the moment, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of born ticks about too. So they'll need to keep themselves, of course, nice and clean. But they're looking so healthy, which is really good. Remember, we are on a live safari, so if you have any questions about the Nkuhumas, I'd love to hear from you. You can hashtag Safari Live. Oh, bless you. You can do that on Twitter, or you can send us an email, questions@WildEarthTV. Let's see what she's going to do now. No, don't go lay there. Michael, you're commenting on the shape of the pupils versus domestic cats versus lions. And you're saying that, I think you've just said that lion pupils are round, whereas cats seem to be more vertical. And you're wondering why. That's a very good question. Perhaps it's got something to do with their eyesight at night. But then I also think to myself, domestic cats are also predominantly nocturnal. They spend the most of their days lounging about, doing absolutely nothing. And then when night comes along, my goodness, then you hear the screeches from the males having out on patrol and hunt too. So I'm not actually sure about that, but I suspect it's got something to do with their light absorbing abilities. But Michael, I'll do a little bit of research. I'll have a look at one of my mammals books, and they actually do speak about the lion's eyes. I'll have to do that this evening. Sadly, it's in my with the rest of my books, and I shall get back to you hopefully tomorrow. But a very, very interesting question nonetheless. Hello, little one. You see, this little one's also starting to wake up slightly, but I think it's just going to join the rest of the carpet of the lions. Ryan, you're wondering what is wrong with the lion's elbows. You said that they're all black. Now, unfortunately, it's not arm pads for them to go skateboarding. It's unfortunately they were plagued by mange. So mange is a parasite that feeds on the hair follicles of the animals, and normally it attacks them when they're in a weakened state. And we saw this, of course, in the winter months when the buffalo, which is what they were mainly feeding on, weren't getting enough nutrients. So unfortunately, their immune systems dropped, and they were, well, by the mange. But this seems to have gotten much better now. At one point, a couple of them were completely covered in black. And unfortunately, if you have been following, you'll know that the Styx Pride doesn't seem to have too much luck with mange, and they lost their previous set of cubs. But they've got two now, and we'll see if they make it to adulthood. But it is very tough when you get something like mange from your mother almost straight away as a very, very young cub. And this can make it very difficult for your chances of survival. See, there's a lot of cloud cover now, which is proving to be very pleasant. You can see there's not much sunlight, just every now and then the odd beam coming through. And they look a little bit restless, waking up, laying back down on top of each other. There's little flip-flop. There's our favorite little lion cub, well, my favorite little lion cub. But you can see, now this is a good example. She was covered in mange, literally from the tips of her ears right down to the tip of her tail. And you can still see it, the damage around her ears, and you can see those black sort of blotches going down her neck. But she looks much better. I can promise you, she looks absolutely 110% now. And I think that she will pull through. But we're going to go across to Brent, who's having a birding day, and I wonder if he's found that monotonous lark.
Well, it's not a monotonous lark. It's something else. And it's making lots of noise. Now, I think this is a good quiz bird. What do you think, Brian? It's an LBJ, a little brown job. So we want to look at the yellow on the beak. Look at the color of the legs. See if there's any white on the outside of the tail. Look at the throat. Oh, off it goes. So if you know the answer to what bird that is, hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or questions@WildEarthTV. Now, it is World Pangolin Day today. So Brian and I are in the spot where the only pangolin has ever been seen on Safari Live. And I saw it with Dave, but we decided we would spread the pangolin luck. So we've doubled the chance. Dave working on Djuma with his pangolin luck. At least hopefully this time you'll be able to recognize what it is when he spots it the first time. The last time it was, "What is that?" which was quite amusing. So we're going to have a quick look. I did have a look here this morning, but there were no tracks of a pangolin. I have seen pangolin tracks twice since we've seen it that one time. But also, I'm having a quick look for any sign of those lions we were tracking this morning that chased the buffalo into Kruger. They might have come back through this area. Hi, Jay Pucci, who would like to know, is the pangolin related to the armadillo? Not to my knowledge. They evolved separately on separate continents, and we of course have quite a few different types of pangolin. Here we have the ground or Temix pangolin, and you get two different species of tree climbing pangolins in the Congo Basin forests, and then you also get the giant pangolin, and the forest pangolins are all very good swimmers, believe it or not, and have to cross through the water quite a lot. Okay, here we go. This is the spot to look for lion and pangolin tracks. I don't see lion tracks. I don't see pangolin tracks. Oh dear. Time to move on then. Now, I don't know. I've just got this inkling that maybe those lions aren't too far from the boundary if they didn't succeed in catching that buffalo that we're chasing, because I haven't seen any vulture activity. So I think we're going to do a little wander up here, just on the edge of the Kruger boundary. And also look for the pangolin. They're going to be quite hard to spot in this grass though. Oh, we've already got some guesses in for that. A very difficult bird quiz. And Shrimp Monster says a sparrow. Ooh, it's not a sparrow. But it does sound quite similar. It has got a very similar diet to a sparrow. And obviously grass seeds out here is what they eat. Oh wait, I can't find it now. So it was not a sparrow. Ryan, are you looking underneath for pangolins? Okay, good. Because this is the spot. Anywhere around here could be a... Now those lions chased those buffalo just up where Brian's looking, in that tree line there. Oh, sorry, I just need to check on the radio quickly. I just thought I heard I got an update on quarantine. Shanae, I was with him when he crossed, and then he's headed back north from where we left him this morning. from Sinead, we followed him. He's crossed. Oh, sorry about that. And I didn't hear. I'm going to turn this down for a bit now and so you can concentrate. Ah, Nev is on the right track. Nev is of course keeping track of Tristan and my bird competition, and Nev would want to know, is it a pipit? It is a pipit, but which pipit is the question. Okay. Any sign of lions leaping across the road, Brian? Not yet. So we had those tracks over there, so I just wanted to see if maybe they failed and they came back and they decided to sleep in the shade here somewhere. And we did check this morning, but it is so easy to miss a flat cat in this long grass. Well, we're going to keep going along here while we do that. Let's go back to Jamie, who's got out the endoscope.
The endoscope is one of the coolest things that VM has ever done for this bushwalk. It is absolutely fantastic. Just have a look at this. There we go. That is a scorpion hole. Nice and big, so we're not doing any damage to the burrow itself by putting this in. We haven't in any way changed the shape of it or disrupted it. Now we went all the way down into this burrow, and this is like playing the most terrifying computer game in the world. Just have a look at this. There is our burrowing scorpion. Oh, he's coming! Look at that! There's the pincer! That's very hard to see. That's the pincer itself. And the rest of the scorpion is in here. There it is. Hello, buddy. You can see his legs at the back, his tail. Hi! And what it does give us is an interesting insight into VM's WhatsApp chats.
Never get signal, now it gets
VM says never get signal, now it's got signal. That's utterly hilarious. So there's our scorpion. And as we back up slowly, you can see it's not attacking us, it's not attacking the camera in any way. And that's the pincer of the scorpion. And what it does give us a really good idea is the perspective of how terrifying a scorpion must be if you are on its menu. Imagine that coming at you if you're that size, in the stuff of nightmares. It also gives us a really nice idea about how deep a scorpion burrow is and the shape of it. The zigzag effect that I had to follow. Where'd it go? What's happening here? Oh, it's a bit too close. There we go. There we go. Hey. And now, watch as we come out. And give you an idea as to, look, he's making sure we're going to go. Yeah, we're going. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Gives you a perspective. Let me try and do this in a way that doesn't scratch this camera. There we go. Look how long that is. There we go. That is how deep that scorpion is underneath its burrow. Something that we never knew. So that's how far something like a honey badger, for example, will have to dig in order to... I'm sorry, my leg is completely cramped. I've been in this position for forever and it's dead. It's completely dead. We were waiting for a while whilst Brent attempted to catch you all out on birds, and my calf's gone dead. Monkey Man, you want to know if we are in the vicinity of the baboon spider and her little ones, and whether... Sorry, Lionheart. I don't know how I got that mixed up. Lionheart, you wanted to know if we're in the vicinity of the baboon spider and her little ones. We're not far away. Apparently there's an elephant, or there was an elephant at the Voyatella Dam, so we're going to try and walk around him. It was my plan to spend most of this afternoon's walk at the dam itself to see what critters turned up. So if we do find ourselves in that vicinity, absolutely I'll have a look at her. I don't
depending on what her burrow is looking like, I might not, it's not like sticking a blade of grass down there, so I might do it only if I find that she doesn't have any silk around the entrance to her burrow. I don't really want to scare or upset her babies in that area. It's one thing with a scorpion. You could see that scorpion was just kind of watching what we got up to, every now and again checking that we weren't going to come and attack it. But I think that particularly for a baboon spider with babies, I don't know that I would try and sort of stick this down their hole. It feels a little bit too invasive, especially with little ones. So we won't be doing that. However, there are all sorts of other opportunities to utilize this endoscope. I'm excited about the possibilities. I can't wait to see. So that's a burrowing scorpion, which is pretty obvious given that it burrows. It made a burrow. And the burrow itself, from what I knew this as well. Here's a baby baboon spider nest. Young baboon spider. So a baboon spider's tunnel goes down straight into the dirt. If you can sort of imagine, this is the top of the soil, and this is where the baboon spider sits. It's a straight tunnel. Whereas this burrowing scorpion's tunnel, not quite, but by the way that we had to move the camera, it sort of does this. I had to do some twisting and turning before we came upon the scorpion settled at the bottom, which makes sense because it means that if something tries to dig straight down, it might not necessarily find them straight away. That was utterly fascinating. We're going to go and find more things to explore with the endoscope. In the meantime, James is once again practicing his utterly astounding artistic abilities.
Yes, I am, everybody. I am. Another blank canvas, another shadow, which there shouldn't be there. Sorry about that. You're just going to have to deal with it, I think, this time around. Okay, what I wanted to show you, while I answer a few questions on the pangolin, this is a sort of dorsal view of the pangolin. Grant, you say, are pangolins anything like anteaters? Well, I mean, there are anteaters. They're not like... they're not like any other sort of anteater, I suppose. They're not like a giant anteater of South America, and they're certainly not like an aardvark out here. This one looks like a crocodile, actually. My drawing skills, I'm afraid, have deserted me. But I'm about to show you something quite astounding. So bear with me, and we have a few questions about these pangolins. And Karen, you're wondering, I think, all the way from England, what the scales of a pangolin are used for. They're used for all manner of medicinal purposes. Now, there are 4 species of African pangolin, and there are a few species of Asian pangolin, and it's the Asian pangolin that has driven, I think, the demand for scales of the African pangolin. Yes, there are 1 or 2 people out here that will use the scales for traditional medicine, but I think it's largely they're used in Asia, and once again they have absolutely no function or scientifically proven purpose for medicine whatsoever, and they're used for a wide variety of ills, a little bit like a rhino horn, which is used to cure everything from colds and flu to trouble with balding. Apparently very, very few people will actually use them for impotence or as an aphrodisiac, which is what everyone used to think that they were used for. The tongue does this. Vanessa, while we draw the tongue here, you say, is it sticky? It is. Now, I kid you not, this is where the pangolin's tongue lives. That is how long it is. It goes in underneath the scale, obviously not on the back, as Kirsten was saying. Kirsten's not being serious, of course. It goes in, same as yours does, but it extends all the way down the esophagus, then through its own sort of, past the rib cage, through its own entrance, I guess, and the muscle then extends out onto the back and around like that, so that it can push the tongue all the way out from the back, out of the mouth. It's the equivalent of having a tongue probably about, I'm going to say 3 feet in extent out of your mouth. So it sticks 3 feet out of your mouth. It pulls it back in once it's covered in ants. And then it pulls it through down the esophagus, and as it goes down the esophagus, it goes into its own tube and scrapes the ants off, and they then go down into the stomach. But that's how long it is in relation to the pangolin's body, which I think is quite astounding. And it eats almost exclusively, formicid ants. Out here, about 15 species of them, and then termites sometimes, but it's largely ants out here. Now, Afra, you're wondering what they're made from. They're actually made from exactly the same sort of stuff as rhino horn is made from, same stuff as your nails are made from, same stuff as the horns of a cow are made from, same stuff as this over here, which is the covering on the horn of this wildebeest that is very kindly agreed to be my pen holder, and it's keratin. It's an utterly indigestible chemical, but for a few months, digestible to human beings, it will come out in exactly the same form that it went in. And apparently they are prepared by frying them, cooking them up, doing various things, soaking them and all that sort of thing. Dropna, you're wondering, Swapna, you want to know if it is true that pangolins like to roll about in wildebeest dung. I've never heard that, and I've just read a fairly substantial account on pangolins. I've not heard that at all. So no, I don't think they necessarily like to do that. I'd love to know where you heard that, or where you perhaps read it. The other thing about the pangolin, which I think is very interesting, is that they become totally habituated to human beings very quickly. So if you can find them, and the area that you're in is not full of predators that would try and eat them, such as lions and hyenas, then they will completely habituate, and they'll actually crawl over your feet and just get on with life all around you. And one of them, or most of the research that's been done on the ground pangolin, which lives here, was done in the Sabi Sands during 1999, or around about that time, probably 97 to 99, by a chap called Jonathan Swart. And he followed 15 pangolins for about 14 months. Every single night, and so that's where we get a lot of the knowledge from, and they're totally easy to follow. Of course, there are some very interesting incidents where he describes ending up in a tree, not because of the pangolin, but because while he was following it, the pangolin came up to a lion or a hyena or something like that, and the pangolin rolled into a ball, and he had to go up the tree and try and sort of escape from being eaten, because of course you do not want to be on foot with a lion in the night, even if you are a very competent pangolin researcher. Right, well, that's all I have to say about these particular pangolins. Yes, they are, Judy H. You're absolutely correct. The scales of my pangolin were correct in the first drawing. They're not correct in this drawing. They are facing completely the wrong way. You're absolutely correct. Thank you very much for pointing that out, Judy H. We don't watch this show for my art, really. I mean, much as I'd like to think that we do. Anyway, Judy H., I have a surprise for you when you come back to us, because there was a plant that you asked me about. I promised I'd get back to you. I haven't done so yet. I will get back to you shortly. In the meantime, Taylor, I forget what she's doing. I think she's still with the lions.
We've had to leave the lions, sadly, just because there's another vehicle that would love to come in, and unfortunately there is very, very little room in there. As you saw, we were tightly squeezed, but we'll go back a little bit later. I suspect that the rest of the safari vehicles will come through now, and then hopefully go stop for a nice sundowner where we'll be able to have the lions, hopefully, to ourselves. But we're back at Buffelshoek Dam, and our friends the hippopotamus that were in here for this, or from this morning, are very shy. They're not brave hippopotamus like the ones at the Chitwa Dam. They seem to be a little bit on the nervous side. But I don't know if you remember this morning, and that I'd said that there were two in here, and I couldn't quite tell you what the combination of them was, because the one hippo was so shy that it wouldn't pop its head out. But we managed to get a very, very brief view of the two of them, and it seems to be a mom and a young calf. Not a teeny tiny calf like you saw with Brent a couple of TV shows ago, and I think you've seen it since. That's mom, but it's probably about a year, maybe even 2 years old, a little bit on the bigger side. But there it is. It's just popped up just to the left of the mom, and there it is. You can see there a little one, but not teeny tot. hello. And that's probably the only view you unfortunately are going to get of that youngster. But sometimes it takes a bit longer for certain species of animals to be habituated to the vehicles, or perhaps maybe it's just a very nervous hippo. My goodness, Brent is set in stone on winning the birding competition for February 2017. So let's go back across to him and see what other bird he's found for you.
What's that monotonous lark that we were looking for a bit earlier? Now you can at least land it in that dead tree there. Oh, but you can just hear that call. Brian thinks if you had to sort of have your house amongst an open area with monotonous larks, you might go mad.
Definitely.
Definitely. What do you think they're saying, Brian? What does it sound like?
A water stick.
A water stick. A water stick. A water stick. I got you. No, I don't know what it sounds like. What do you guys think the monotonous lark sounds like? A water stick. Brian says a water stick. I'm still trying to think. Oof. Well done. Hey, it's me. You got the quiz correction correct. African grass-felt pipit. I'm just trying to think. What does it say? What does it say? A water stick? A water stick? I don't know. Why don't you guys send through some what do you think the pipit is saying? Use the hashtag Safari Live or questions at WildEarthTV. What do you think that monotonous, sorry, not monotonous pipit, monotonous lark is saying? Now they've obviously moved into this area because of the rain, and they are seriously intent on advertising their presence and obviously trying to attract all the females by calling. Let's go have one quick look at Cheetah Plains Pan. Oh, there's a good one from Arbed. I can fly, can you? I can fly, can you? What do you think, Brian?
That's okay.
I think it's better than a water stick, to be honest.
I don't.
I'm actually pretty sure it's better than a water stick. Ah. What tracks were theirs? Oh, actually, because they're so clear, we don't actually see these tracks too often. Let's have a look here. Because they're so nice and clear, if you have a look here, how's that one, Ron? So you can see there the toes, and you see there's two very distinct long claws out the front, which tells me it's a jackal, and judging by the size, I would say it is a side striped jackal. Oh, the guys from Mala Mala are calling me. Maybe they've seen something. Maybe he wants to have a chat. Maybe he's spotted a cheetah. Oh, no, I think he's strolling out for a chat. So let me go have a chat and see what's happening there. Okay, well, I have a catch-up chat with our southern neighbour. Let's go see how Jamie's faring on foot.
Is Brent calling himself a chatty Cathy, or is he calling the other chap chatty Cathy, or lady? I'm not sure whether... Oh, it was just Kirsty, apparently. That was just the way Kirsty was describing it. We've come out going towards Djuma Dam. We've just been waiting for our elephant to make his way away from us. And we did have a lovely herd of impala that was striding along the road in front of us. It was stunning. It was absolutely beautiful, and it was a nice lesson in body language and the ability of the animals to read it. So when we first came up out of the dry riverbed system that we were walking in, we popped up here, and immediately the impala got a surprise and they ran away from us. And then steadily, as they watched us walking and ignoring them essentially, they immediately relaxed and kind of wandered along the road a little bit. One or two of them were a bit skittish, but most of them generally tolerated our presence. And they're very, very good. Antelope are exceptionally good at reading our behavior. They've got years and years of instinct telling them exactly what our intentions are. So now, if I were to start creeping up to them, if they could see that my forward-facing eyes were focused on them, my head position was focused on them, as it is now, you can already see the difference in response as they move away from us. But one of the things that I've noticed, especially with slightly more habituated antelope, with the ones you get around the tent, for example, the Inyala, the bushbuck, those sorts of things, I've found that I could often get as close as I am to VM, if not even closer to things like Inyala, provided, let's say you're an Inyala, and you're sitting or standing looking at me going past. Provided I did this, I could go right past them. But if I were to do this, and focus on them and try and get close to them, they'd immediately turn around and sprint away. And in that way, we got to the point where we could get very, very close to the Inyala. That, of course, made for some interesting moments. Habituated animals, wild animals, are always more dangerous than wild animals because they become more relaxed, they're in closer proximity. So there was one time where a male Inyala decided it had had enough of my dog Lexi's games and charged her. Lexi, of course, did what any good dog would do and ran straight back to me through my legs, and I was faced with the barreling presence of a male Inyala, which on foot is about this big. Also had to push an Inyala out of the kitchen before by the horns. Now, cat in Ohio, of course, the impala are very, very skittish. Now, you want to know how they stay safe at night. They don't always. That's the reality of the situation. This elephant, by the way, has walked along here and in that direction, but his tracks have been obscured by numerous impala tracks wandering along. So cat, these impala, depending on the weather tonight, they might be quite comfortable hiding here in this relatively thick vegetation, because I don't think it's going to be as scary as it has been over the last few days. It's not going to be as dark and cloudy and windy and rainy, all sorts of things to scare them. There they all go. Big herd of impala. What they'll often try to do, because there's a herd of them, so there's safety in numbers, is they will move on to open areas. One of the big ones around here is the quarantine clearings, which is not too far from here. Sorry, something has brought on my allergies terribly in that Bulwati. They might go to the open areas and they will try and look for predators there, but it doesn't always work. Michael, you want to know what determines how long an impala herd will stay in an area? They actually kind of have home ranges. You usually find at certain times of the year, you find certain herds of impala around here, for example, and Twin Dams. There's always a bachelor herd of impala rams around Twin Dams, a herd around Zoe's Road, and so on. Food, resources, time of the year, breeding season will determine if they decide to stick around, because of course you get that split into the females and the dominant males, and then the other things, bachelor herds. Sorry, lost my train of thought there completely, because Herbie is calling us, wants to see what he has found. Hello, Mbalalas. It's alright. They're now completely unfazed by our presence, completely relaxed, moving away from, not even moving away actually. Some of them have even stopped to feed. I always love moments like that. It gives you the feeling of, oh, now there's a male chasing them. Do not run into us. Idiot. Herbie's standing behind me, he's killing himself laughing. And they're going back again. You silly male impala. Stop terrorizing the females. It's not time yet. He's got his seasons mixed up. Gobble, 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 gobble. They sound like giant, terrifying turkeys when they do that. That deep mating sound. Silly creatures. There was a male chasing the females around to mate with them. They weren't very impressed. Ah, Megan. The common rumour. What's the word? Fallacy. Guiding nonsense that has been sprouted over the years. Megan, you want to know if impala can suppress their pregnancies? I was taught when I was 8 years old going on a night drive somewhere that absolutely female impala, when it's dry, will hold back the birth of their babies. It's not possible. They cannot do that. You might find that the year before might have been a bit dry and their hormone cycles might have shifted slightly, but their gestation period is a gestation period. They can no more hold off their babies being born than you could if you went into labor. So, absolutely not. Sorry, what have you seen, Herbs? Ah, the fishy girl. Oh, how lovely. Oh, stunning. I see him there. So it's this common story that's been told about impala. Can you see it? There he is right on the other side of the dam. In the dead tree. It's a very, very common fallacy that impala can hold back their births. What will happen is not every time that they mate is fertilization successful. So what that means is that there's the initial breeding season, because all impala come into estrus at the same time. There's the initial breeding season, which will be around May or June, and then not all of them fall pregnant, which means that they come into a second estrus, just like a sort of a normal menstrual cycle or normal estrus cycle for the various types of female mammals. They will then come back into a second estrus. The females will mate with them, and so they'll have late pregnancies. That doesn't mean that they are holding off on when they give birth at all. So it's one of those things. I don't know if it was a deliberate, if it started out as a joke or what it was that actually gave rise to this idea that impala could hold back their pregnancies. I have heard it from so many different guides over the years when I was a child, that impala stop themselves from giving birth. It's nonsense. There's no way it makes any sense. Of course, the great learned gentleman James might have more to comment on the subject. Let's go and find out which book he's having a read of, or just reading.
Huge. Almost unholdable, actually, and it is the quintessential book. I'm not allowed to show you the brand. It is the quintessential book of southern African mammals, and well, it's very big. If you can find one with a cover that looks vaguely like that, well, then I suggest you do. Okay, and what I was looking up was in fact impala, because it's a wonderful story that Jamie's just told you, and my understanding of why it came about was because of what she was describing there as almost a secondary estrus cycle. Now, I've read that it is as Jamie described it, but also some of the females just don't fall pregnant the first time round. So during the May rut, they don't fall pregnant. And 3 months later, they do. In fact, is it 3 months? Would it be? Yeah, it would be 3 months later, around about September. July, August, yes. 3.5 months or so. And I've seen impala mating in September. It's the only time I've seen them mating. I've never seen them doing it in the sort of May period. So I've seen them mating in September. They then give birth in February. Now, it's not surprising that this myth came around because most of the rain we get here, I know we start talking about rain and we want rain to come around September. It never does in October, and we think, oh, it's so dry here. It's always dry in October. It's always dry in November. We get a bit of rain sort of late November going into December. But the main rainy season is between the beginning of January and the end of February. That's when we're supposed to get the most of the rain. And so I think the myth that Impala are able to hold back their babies until the rains start is probably from that. So they'd give birth in February, sometimes as early or as late as early March. Only those ewes that have been impregnated around September. So that's where it comes from. And of course, I have heard it perpetuated up to this day, that ridiculous notion that Impala are able to hold back their youngsters. And in fact, I was speaking to a very experienced guide the other day, and we were having a discussion about this, and he said, but what do you mean they can't hold back their babies? And I said, well, what do you mean they can hold back their babies? And it's perpetuated just about every facet of guiding. And I guarantee you, if you went on a game drive in many reserves, you would hear that very same ridiculous story. Now, we have a couple of very nice insects to show you. Jacob, what a very good question that you have asked. 11 years old, all the way from London. You're obviously a very intelligent English fellow, and you want to know, you know that Impala graze and browse, but what do they prefer to do? Jacob, it's very much like what you prefer to eat sometimes, right? So you don't wake up every morning and want the same food, and that's because your body actually is telling you what it wants to eat. Sometimes you'll feel like meat and veg, sometimes you'll feel like some sweets, sometimes you'll feel like a sugary cereal, sometimes you'll feel like bacon and eggs. It'll just depend on what your body wants, what nutrients it's lacking. And it'll be the same for the Impala, on one hand, so they can choose, but also they will probably largely prefer to graze grass if they can, because it's easier to digest and there are fewer chemicals in it. So there are fewer chemical defenses inside something like a grass leaf than there are in something like a combretum or bush willow leaf. So you'll find they only move on to the browsing when they have to, because the grass, of course, is gone dry or it's been overgrazed, and that's what makes them so successful. So I think largely, like most animals actually, like elephants as well, they'll prefer to graze if they can. They will move on to leaves and seeds and pods if they are lacking specific nutrients or if the grass has gone dry. So I think that's probably the answer. Now, we've got some fairly astounding things in here. One of which is a cricket that looks like a spider. And he's going to struggle a bit, and we are going to release him eventually, but he's a youngster. But he's got such long legs that when I initially saw him, I thought he was a spider. And I'll just hold him up for you. And there he is. Is he not amazing? Look at the length of his antenna. Look at his legs. Isn't that amazing? I mean, if you saw that walking along the floor, you would think, oh my goodness, there's a spider, surely I'm going to die. And you'd be forgiven for thinking that. Now, I say as a youngster, oh, sorry, my friend, because he's got these wing buds. See that? They're not fully formed yet. I think that's really rather delightful. Would you like to have a look at him under the microscope? I'd like to have a look at him under the microscope, so I think I will look at him under the microscope. Right, let's have a look here. We're going to need to expose slightly differently. There we go. Sorry, everyone. One day I'm going to get this right. No, sorry, Kirsten. There we go. There's his head. It's actually not quite as impressive as I'd hoped, but it is pretty impressive. Mainly because I'm not holding it quite like I'd like to. Anyway, that is the spider-like That is the spider-like cricket, and I don't know exactly what kind of cricket he is. I couldn't find him in the book. I might hold on to him just for a little while, see if he calms. If he calms, I'm going to hold on to him till we do TV on Monday. But if he starts to get a little bit upset, then I'm probably going to just let him go. Let's see what happens. We'll just let him sit like that. Calm down. All is good. So that's what we have there. Now, one of the reasons that you will see Jamie Patterson wearing long pants on the day like today is, of course, because... Are you sure it was in here?
I put it in here.
You put it in here, did you?
It's quite a big fella.
Was it?
Yes.
Well, I suspect it's probably climbing up one of our legs. There was a tick in here. It was in here, was it?
Yes.
Rondry?
Oh, joy.
I'm afraid this tick is now stalking us. How absolutely terrifying. All right, well, I'm going to set Jean-Andre to finding the tick that he let escape. While he does that, let's head across to Taylor, and she can show you something in a tree.
Shape, James, I hope you managed to locate that tick again before it locates your ankles, because that wouldn't be very fun. But we have indeed got a couple of things in a tree. They are yellow-billed hornbills. There's a whole group of them here. There must be about 5 or 6, and they were sitting on a termite mound, which is just next to us. So I suppose that they must have been feeding on some termites. Now, hornbills are really lovely creatures, and they tend to be quite relaxed, especially these yellow-billed hornbills. So I'm hoping that they decide to fly from the marula tree and then down onto that termite mound, which you just saw. So we'll spend maybe a loop and head back towards Buffelshoek Dam and see what the Nkuhumas are up to. What are those two doing in there? Being camouflaged. That's exactly what they're doing, hiding about. Look at that. It's amazing how they're hidden completely behind all those leaves. There's actually one that's sitting up. Oh, those were African grey hornbills. There it goes. Though those two weren't yellow-billed hornbills. That was a male and a female African grey hornbill. There goes. The yellow-billed hornbill just dived through the bottom of your screen. And I think the rest of them, I don't know where they are. They're hidden so well in the tops of that tree. Okay. Well, that must be our cue then.
Oh, I got him.
Have you got him? Well spotted. Nice, David. Hello. I always think that they are funny-looking creatures. And I love the way that they almost turn their heads to look at us as well. Must be a bit daunting with that big beak on the front of your body. But it might inhibit its eyesight slightly. But you can see it can use its beak very, very well and very precise and able to groom each and every feather. You look like you're about to fly away. He's thinking. I love the way they ruffle their feathers up like that. They always look so angry. Marulas. Not these ones. Not the yellow-billed. However, the crowned mite and the trumpeter, they normally feed upon figs. So in the beautiful big fig trees that you see along the banks of all these rivers in the Sabi Sand, they will always be there with the African green pigeons, feasting upon those fruits. But I've never seen them eating the fruits of a marula before, but I wouldn't put it past them. We used to always see the crowned hornbills in the Eastern Cape flying into the lodge and devouring the fruit salad. And they didn't mind what fruit was in there. They used to munch away. But I wonder if they'd be able to pull the flesh off of a marula. There's not much on there. Oh, what are you eating? Now, Ellie Yellow Bear, you're wondering if there's a difference between the male and the female yellow-billed hornbills. It's quite a difficult thing to spot, Ellie. You've actually, it just takes practice. But you can see that the yellow-billed hornbills have got quite a large beak. Now, on a male, the top part of the beak is much more robust. So it's almost a little bit broader, whereas the females tends to be a little bit more on the slender side. But you almost need them together to be able to tell the difference. And like I said, it just takes a little bit of practice. This one looks like a male, though. And I don't know where the others have gone. I think they've actually taken off and... Oh, no. There's another one. That looks like a female. Can you see it just there on the bush willow? Just to the left, that branch. There we go. You've got it. Well done, David. You're so good. You see that? Ellie the yellow bear, can you see the difference now? Look how more slender her bill is compared to that male. It doesn't almost have that big crest on top. but that they've both got the little red patches on the throat. It's very difficult with birds. They're either completely different from each other, the sexes, or there's almost no sexual dimorphism between, or a very small amount, like we see here with the yellow-billed hornbills. Now, she's edging closer. I'm hoping that she's going to decide to come and land right next to us on this termite mound. But for now, she's catching the last of the afternoon sun. See how she's ruffled her feathers up? Sunbathing. No, she's taken a dive to the next tree. Oh, that's a pity. She was doing such a good job at posing for us. Oh, no. Well, we'll hang around here for a little bit longer. We might actually try and sit as quietly as we can, and hopefully that will entice them to come back over before we go back to the Nkuhumas. But let's go across now to Jamie. The sun is slowly starting to disappear, so I wonder what she's got planned for you next.
Oh, we've just discovered a really lovely pan, and we're sitting quietly just like Taylor has been doing, but for a totally different purpose, because we've found a pan full of tadpoles. Tiny, tiny, tiny little tadpoles. Probably, if I had to guess, 2,000 of them, possibly even more, and only about the length of my There are a lot of these tadpoles that are ripe for the collection so that we could watch them grow up. Herbie tells me that there were loads of bullfrogs in this pan yesterday. I don't know exactly whether or not these are bullfrog tadpoles. I would have expected bullfrog tadpoles to be larger, but I suppose they have just hatched after the rain. James says no to our kind offer of more tadpoles. That's okay. And here I was busy thinking up names for them all. There's Harriet, and there's George, and there's Beatrice over there at the back. Or, as Liam said, tadpole 1, 2, 3 up until 2000. What I'm trying to work out is why exactly most of them gather as they do over there. And the reason it perplexes me is it doesn't make sense. Look, a lot of them have moved, not a lot, 1 or 2 or 3 of them have moved away from the main mass of the tadpoles and have started to spread out. But why have they all gathered together like that? I'm sure there's an explanation in terms of safety and numbers. But the reason I say that is they're so tiny at the moment that if they were to go off on their own, they'd be relatively difficult to spot. But in a massive group like that, you could imagine that something like a bird could just swoop down, or a fish. Okay, there's admittedly no fishes in this particular water pan, but something could easily scoop down and grab a whole load of them at once. And they're so obvious when they're packed together in this big group. I'm just curious to know what the logic is, if there is any. I suppose, admittedly, there's not much thinking going on in the brains of these tadpoles at this point, at a day old. I'm not even entirely sure there's much thinking going on when they're fully grown frogs, although there would be certainly more than there are now. Now they're spreading, they're coming towards us, Liam. They're charging. I told you, our tadpoles are quite nice, and they're very, very, very small. Give you a perspective as to how small they are. They're so tiny. See how tiny they are. James would like to know exactly where we are. James, we are in the drainage line off Voyatella Dam, off Djuma Dam. So there's the dam wall behind me. We're over there. And our tadpoles are here in the little dip where there's a little bit of water. Jim, very good question. We were talking about while you were with Taylor, we were talking about all the different threats that face a tadpole. You want to know if adult frogs will eat tadpoles. Yes, presumably if they find a dead tadpole, they will eat it. I think there would be an evolutionary mechanism to stop them from eating live tadpoles of their own species. But I think if a frog came upon and a frog is very much a carnivorous creature in terms of its diet, especially things like bullfrogs. I think that there'd be an evolutionary design to tell them to not eat their own kind, but I think if there was a dead tadpole or two... I mean, you've even seen, to be honest, Jim, as gruesome as it was with James's tadpoles, I've seen quite a few people didn't believe me, but I've seen them eat the dead tadpoles in James's little tadpole aquarium. So even tadpoles will eat other tadpoles. Dead tadpoles. Waste not, want not, I suppose. There was great devastation when Tripod died. I called the tadpole Tripod because it only had 3 legs. It hadn't quite got around to the 4th one popping out. At the moment, the main diet, of course, of these tadpoles is algae, and that is what they'll be focusing on as they gather up around the various stalks of the plants or the pieces of grass that are in this water.